podcast, the Haas Pod. I'm your host for the evening, Super Tex Brent McKenzie. Unfortunately, Aaron Presley is out tonight. He's dealing with some personal issues, so it's just going to be myself and the man with the plan, the man of the hour, Charlie Haas. Charlie, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then you're going to introduce our guest tonight. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We got an absolute giant in the world of amateur wrestling. So
that's right.
I'm going to turn it over to you and take it away, bud.
Thanks, Brent. Aaron is not here. He's in the middle of moving, so heart goes out to him and trying to move in this traffic, and especially at this time of the year with the holidays. But anyways, he'll be back next week, so looking forward to that. My man right here, we got Rick Dellagatta. He is a legend in amateur wrestling. He is a 3-time All-American at University of Kentucky. He is a 4-time U.S. Open champion, outstanding wrestler at the U.S. Open. He is the master of the duck under, the Ricky D duck. One of my good friends. He's also not only what he did on the mat transpired over onto the mat as coaching as well. So he went from, and he was able to teach so many kids his system, the Ricky Dellagatta system, and it produced a lot of All-Americans, a lot of national champions and world champions. So what we're going to do today is we're going to get in this podcast. We're going to ask Rick what influenced him all the way through his career and how he was able to transition it over into coaching, and then what they look for in coaching and what he looks for at the NYC, because he is also the director of operations for wrestling at the New York Athletic Club, which is a giant. If anyone knows anything about amateur wrestling, that NYC is one of the top clubs in the world and has been for a long time. Rick, how are you doing today?
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Charlie.
Good. No problem, Rick. Rick, so what got you into wrestling? Who influenced you? And yeah, man, who influenced you? And because it's a hard sport, so what made you want to desire to keep going and staying in it?
Well, being from New Jersey, it's hard not to be involved in wrestling because it's so popular here. It's actually like in your DNA. So my cousin Michael Gatto from Vineland High School, South Jersey, started me wrestling when I was younger, and then it evolved to Channel 23. We watched Lehigh wrestle, and we'd sit around and watch Lehigh, the Scully brothers, and Coach Thad Turner. And could you imagine, that was years ago, and all the local stations carried the high school matches, and you get to watch yourself wrestle on television in your community. So if you're up in Sparta or Vineland or any place in New Jersey, you get to watch yourself wrestling, and it's like self-promoting. Plus being on the border with Pennsylvania, a lot of competitions. So it really allows you to look at wrestling. They kind of romanticize the sport, and then you become driven, And I fell in love with the sport. I wrestled for Buena High School, and then went on to the University of Kentucky, then U.S. team and New York Athletic Club. And I fell in love with the sport, and my boys now do it. It was an exciting time in my life when I competed, and I also enjoy coaching and helping coaching and paying it forward.
So when you so now I didn't know that, because we met. If everyone doesn't know this, so we met Rick I met Rick going to Seton Hall University when I was wrestling, and ended up helping us coach there, and with Joey Burke and Lou Sergio, Junior Nardone, Wade Rogers, myself. We're part of that '96 team that we finished 13th in the country, won the Big East, first time ever seen all history. We owe it to this man right here, Ricky D. Rick, I got to ask you also, so I grew up in Oklahoma, but we never had it. We never, we didn't even have the high school matches televised. So that's pretty great. I mean, for you guys to have it televised, but then also when so you realized you wanted to wrestle. How come you went to Kentucky though? Because if they showed Lehigh, Penn State, and you're right on the border of that, I mean, that's right there. That's a recruiting advancement right there. I mean,
well, when I was in high school, I had suffered a shoulder injury, and as a 17-year-old, I wrestled in the Olympic trials and defeated some college wrestlers as a 17-year-old, some really high-level college guys. One of those guys was a Tom Dursey, who ended up being on one of my U.S. teams with me, and I forgot all about me beating him. And Tom was in a roommate of mine. He goes, "Dellagatta, I hate you because you beat me when you were a high school kid, and I was a senior." So what motivated me to go to Kentucky was it was the SEC. The SEC was a tremendous wrestling power. I had met Coach Cole, Rob Cole's father, at Penn State, Lock Haven. A lot of recruiting was going on, but I fell in love with University of Kentucky because I met the Carr family, and my wrestling coaching style. I always say it's a third generation Carr because we teach a lot of the techniques. Because when I went down to Kentucky, Jimmy was on the team. He was a senior, ranked 4th in the country.
He's the first high school kid to go to make the Olympic team, correct?
Yeah, Jimmy made the Olympic team at 16. And maybe you guys should do a podcast with the Carrs because
I'd love to.
they have so just great people, great mentors, tremendous coaches. You had Fletcher was the first African American head wrestling coach, and Joe Carr, who senior and junior, both great technicians. I felt Joe was one of the master technicians of our time. And he passed a lot of it forward to his son. And then you have Nate, who's just a tremendous technician. And I think Nate was a bronze medalist in the Olympics. So
yeah,
David's an NCAA champion as a freshman or sophomore. Yeah,
he won a national title, man.
Yeah.
I know. Hey, so when you I didn't know that. So Rob Cole's dad. So anyone who doesn't know Rob Cole is the coach at Cornell, and and he is
no. He coached Cornell, always a top 5 team. His father used to smoke the cigar in the wrestling room, but Rob recently took a position as the head coach at Stanford. And
really?
Yeah, and Nate Carr Jr. is now like a coach at Lock Haven. So the wrestling community is very small. It's really small. They're doing well, but I think Michael Gray took over the head coaching position at Cornell, and this just happened all this year. So there's always a lot of movement.
I thought Dake may have taken it over since, but he still wants to win the gold, I guess.
Well, they got Yanni, Dake. They've got a couple up and comers, young wrestlers. Tremendous program there. They'll make some noise at the NCAAs this year.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, they were missed last year for sure. So.
Yeah, and just so you know, the Ivy Leagues did not wrestle in the NCAAs last year. Made it a kind of a weaker tournament, and this year they're all back, so it's going to be exciting. It's been exciting. Yeah.
So so I'm pulling up my notes here. I just wanted to. So, who was it that? So you decided to go to Kentucky because of the Carrs. How was the recruiting like then compared to what it is now? Because your son Michael, who's ranked 5th in the country, he's a junior. He's getting letters from everywhere. And so, how was the recruiting different from your time to now?
Well, with the modern technology, it's a lot easier for the coaches to have one-on-ones and to watch videos. And back then, I was going to go to LSU with Coach Sacatano because the SEC was growing and was big. And eventually Title IX affected us and we dropped a lot of programs. But I hear they're coming back because of women's program. But the reason I was contacted by Kentucky was a gentleman, Jeff Watkins, had recruited me. And I flew down there and I fell in love with the coaches. And I was in the room and UK, the Matt Cats back then, Fletcher was the head coach. Joe was the assistant. Jimmy was on the team with us. But we had like 5 All-Americans on our college team. And a bunch of them were from Erie, Pennsylvania. We had Harold Smith, myself, James Johnson, who went on to be a 3-time national Greco champion. And he was a Greco national team coach for years. He just passed away last year, but JJ was a monster on the mat. Really good.
He lost. He had a lot of influence. He knew, and he coached a lot of at the Sunkist Kids. A lot of kids that are up there are in pro wrestling right now. So he had his pulse on wrestling in both pro and amateur. So it's just a great loss. It was a real big loss for the wrestling community.
Yeah, he's phenomenal person, coach. Great family.
So you get to Kentucky. All right. So you get to Kentucky. Were you able to start right away? When did you realize that you could dominate the room? And when did you realize that, man, you're ready to dominate just the whole wrestling world?
Well, as a freshman going into Kentucky, it was hard to consider breaking the lineup, but I did. When we went to Kentucky, there was our weight classes were stacked with recruits. We had two of Kenny Monday's high school teammates, Joe Leathers and Rodney Hooks. Then there was Reginald Adolphus Burke, and then Garrett Headley, who was ranked, I think, 6th in the country. So I had to wrestle up the ladder and beat all those guys to make the team. And the coach said, if you can make varsity as a freshman, we get to fly you and you take the trips, because UK had a great program where we'd fly one of the governor's planes. So we would all get on the private plane and we'd fly from match to match to match. So I was just excited to be able to be on the team. And when I first realized, my potential to dominate was my first starting out of box. It was tough because, I was wrestling up a weight class. I was wrestling 26-34, and the kids were stronger. But I started training with Joe on Sundays, and I beat some really good kids, and I started getting more and more confident. And then when the light bulb went on, I was 20 years old, and they brought me to the U.S. Open, and that's freestyle, different style. And I went into the competition, and I got picked up by the New York Athletic Club, and I was wrestling, and I won the U.S. Open at 20. At that point, I'm beating all the Olympians, guys who were, the best in the world. But the crazy thing, the U.S. Open back then was a lot tougher than now, because they used that competition to set a ladder team for team selections. And then, there were so many great wrestlers.
Well, let's go back for a minute. So explain especially to the pro wrestling fans that'll be listening to this, as we're trying to mix both, and we're just trying to make wrestling. But explain how the New York Athletic Club and how dominating it was. And I mean, the other clubs that you had at the time. This is prior to Foxcatcher. So who else did you have to compete for? And how was the recruiting for that? And why did you choose them?
Well, you have your college, which is amateur, and you represent your university. And back then, I think there was like 300 Division I programs. Then they had NAIA junior college, it's educational. They had Division II, Division III, and now they have the club programs where there's club wrestlers. So, but freestyle is a different style than scholastic. Freestyle is more like pro wrestling because there's throws and it's back soups and there's clubs back then. You have the New York Athletic Club, you had Sunkiss, which was Art Maturi, you had the Cowboy Wrestling Club, the Hawkeye Club, which was Iowa, and all these clubs would train the college wrestlers to compete for Olympic spots, world team spots, World Cup spots, and the styles are different. But being at the University of Kentucky, we did not have a great club system because we're a Southern school, and the NYAC guys had saw me wrestle, and they put me on their team. And my first competition for them, we won the whole national competitions. The NYC was the champions. Art Maturi's always had a dominant, tremendous program, but we won that year. We went on to just, I think we won 4 national titles when I competed for them, which is hard to do, especially when you have competition at that level.
Right.
It was exciting to freestyle because the higher you throw a guy, the more points you get. And in scholastic, you're not allowed to slam. So that's why I would say pro wrestling parallels more freestyle. Like, you have guys like Gable Stevenson and AJ Ferrari and guys like that are both freestylers and scholastic wrestlers. So they're going to add some pizzazz.
They're pro wrestlers, baby. They both signed with WWE. So let me ask you, so everyone out there, freestyle wrestling and Greco is what you see in the Olympics. Here in the United States, we have folk style, so it's a little bit different. It's a different style. The rules are a little bit different by the pointing system. Like I said, they make freestyle to be where it's more exciting. Where and the disadvantage that we have is that we don't practice it all year long. We're doing folk style mostly all through high school, college, junior high, youth level, and the rest of the world they don't do folk style. They never even heard of it really. We're the ones that introduced it. But so when we get to that international level, we're at a disadvantage, and we were for a long time until Rick and his really, it's your whole group that came up there. Gene Mills, the Schultzes, Rick Dellagatta, Andre Metzger, the Cars. I mean, it was your group that really turned it around because the Russians dominated for a long time.
Yeah, Bruce Baumgartner,
Right.
Harold Smith, Joey Gonzalez. I mean, Joe Corso. I mean, Randy Lewis. I mean, just John Smith. I mean, just tremendous competitors. You had Andy Ryan from Wisconsin. So the Russians were the Soviet Union, which, for a lot of the young people do not realize that the Soviet Union was a consolidated country that was competing against us in a communist government, and their military was their wrestling. They actually took their athletes at a young age and they would train them all over. So you're competing against people that were training 10 hours a day, 8 hours a day from the age of 13, and they would only do freestyle or Greco. Yeah.
Is that the truth? Because I mean, that's the rumors that we heard back then, that the communists, like, you're there to do one thing, and that's wrestle. And
they would train them to wrestle. Yeah. Actually, they had some of the great wrestlers of all time. In our area, you had the legendary Alexander Medved, and the legendary Beloglazov brothers, and Alexei, and so on and so forth. Tremendous, and we would have to compete against the Soviet Union, and eventually we actually caught them and beat them, which was unheard of because we have to go to college, we have to work, and we have to train Scholastic, and then while we're training Scholastic, we then have to transition to a freestyle or a Greco. Steve Frazier was an Olympic champion for us, and he was a freestyle national champion. He won nationals with me and the Schultz brothers. We won U.S. Open together. He went on to be a great U.S. Greco coach, and now he's an executive with USA Wrestling. USA Wrestling Organization has Bruce Baumgartner, the president. Just a tremendous organization for the kids and the young people, and now the girls, because we've got the girl wrestlers. And I will tell you, like 25 years ago, I was one of the first clubs in New Jersey that actually was training girls. It was an adjustment because it was like, oh, girl wrestling, and a lot of the moms did not want them to do it. And now it's the fastest growing high school sport in the country. The ladies are just phenomenal athletes, and we're one of the best Olympic wrestling teams in the world are lady wrestlers.
Yeah, we had I think 3 medal winners in the Olympics for the Olympic team this year. 2 of them I think were gold.
We had Adeline Gray just got the Living the Dream Award. I guess they give her $50,000. It was just awarded her a $50,000 check for winning the World Championships for the U.S. this past year. Because with the Olympics, they had to do the Olympics and the World Championships within the same window. And Adeline was we had, what do we have, like 6?
6 girls.
Yeah, we're just awesome. Name drop, all right?
So now, okay, so you chose New York Athletic Club, and who are some of the members that were on there that you trained with? That were influential in your life and helped you with your training? Because then we're going to talk about how you got into the Ricky D Duck, because I know that had to come along with the G Mills half at the same time. So
I probably need to record the duck. And
I'll
record it. I'll send it to you. You can.
We have a YouTube channel, and I would like to put that on there. And that's what I'll have Gene send in. Perfect. You show us how you do the duck.
It takes time, but it's got a lot of body mechanics and positions and angles. A lot of wrestlers will say it's unorthodox. Actually, I was showing it to one of my biggest competitors. He was helping me coach my kids, was Randy Lewis. It's like, Ricky D, that really is something. So Randy was with me, and I showed it to him. I was like, that's how you did that. So, and he was sharing with me his techniques, because Randy was a gold medalist for the U.S. team, and we trained my boys together, with Gino, and all my former Olympic teammates work with Michael and Rocco. And my Michael is 6'2". He's a junior, and he should really he's a dominant force. He's getting recruited like crazy right now. And I'm proud of him because he loves the sport, good academically.
So who are the ones that you
Papa?
No, I mean, he's going to dominate, and you got another one right behind him that's going to be a dominator too. Hey,
Yeah, little Rocco, he's something.
little Rocco, he's like 108, 60 pounds and just a freshman. Jesus.
Yeah, 170. Yeah, he's something.
So who were some of the people that you trained with though and you worked with?
Well, I spent a lot of time training for college with the cars. We had our room there with Joe Carr was master technician, and I had Kurt Mock from Pennsylvania, and Timmy Macedas, tremendous wrestlers, but all Americans on our team. And you know, I could go up and down the ladder, you know, from Curtis Longstreet, to Garrett Headley. Randy Miller was one of my primary freestyle coaches, and he was from Michigan, and he was a national champion. So when I went to the New York Athletic Club, I actually used to train my three main training partners. I had Chikara Morano, who's my primary freestyle coach, and we trained right out of Manhattan, lived in Manhattan, the Big Apple, 60th and Columbus, right across from the Lincoln Center. And we'd go over and train out of the club. And I had just the room was always filled with great guys. We had Kenny Mallory, NCAA champion, great wrestler. Nicky Gallo, NCAA champion, great wrestler. I had Dave Foxon. I think he was multiple time All-American. He was taking a lot of thirds in the freestyle nationals. And then we had a lot of Greco guys coming in, like Joe Mayo and a lot of guys from the Adirondacks. I trained all the time with the Mills monster and Metzger, Gene Mills. Gene holds the NCAA pin record, I think 108 pins, although Wade Chalice says, no, he holds it, you know. But it was tremendous training with those guys. A lot of hours in the room, a lot of technique. And we would go to all the different coaches. You know, you had Stan Desick. They have camps. The old days, they had camps all the time. So you always had to go to the camps, Lehigh camp, Nebraska camp. You know, we're just all over the place training. A big commitment it is, like it is today.
And so, you know, so you go to all these tournaments, but you know, you didn't have the advantage like the kids say. I tell kids, man, when I'm coaching, like, watch YouTube, watch your opponents, watch the people that are ahead of you and that are, you know, in college and high school now, and you know, watch how their technique, and you know, try to adapt, and maybe it's a move that you can use, you know. So, but you guys didn't have that. You didn't have that advantage at all. So, how did you train for people? I mean, the films you had were actually 8mm films. So
yeah, so I was very blessed because a video company donated me one of these big cameras like this, and we would take it to the matches when we're competing. We'd video our opponents. We'd go back and we'd analyze the videos, and I think it was VHS or Betamax or whatever. It was so long ago. And then we would slow motion analyze it. At Kentucky, we had video. We videoed all our matches. USA Wrestling always did video when I was wrestling with them, and you study films, and it wasn't as prevalent or accessible as it is on the internet, the techniques, but you know, it was more of a commitment for us to study. Video was a lot harder, not like it is today, but we did study video. Like, I knew what Bela Glazov did, I knew what Alexiev did, I knew what Randy Lewis did. You know, I knew what Darryl Burley did. I knew what Leroy Smith did, and they knew what I did. So it's just part of the training process, you know. Mallory.
So is it true that your duck under, did that come from an injury? I mean, is that how you developed it? I mean, that's what I heard. I heard you were so injured that you created this move, and it was the Ricky D duck.
Yeah, I hurt my shoulder, and in high school, and I couldn't. Actually, as I got older, my shoulder improved with I wouldn't let him cut me. I just developed strength and rehabilitation in Hamilton with my cousin Rick, who was a physical therapist. Spent a lot of time working on it. But the cars had great duck unders. I took the car duck under, and I evolved it to fit my style, and I made a lot of adjustments to it because Nate had a super duck, and Joe had ducks, and Jimmy had ducks. So I took the duck under. I kind of used it in high school, but then I evolved it, and it's a tremendous series. It's unstoppable if you master it. It involves a head wheel and a lot of body mechanics. But an injury promoted me to work on that because I couldn't shoot for a while, and I become a prolific scorer. I scored a lot of matches.
Yeah, and back then they didn't have the tech fall rule yet, or
No, they didn't have the mercy rule. But you know, Gene Mills on top would score tons of points. So we used to have competitions. In the old days, we'd have to call with the regular phone after the match, and Gene and I would have competition. So I beat a guy from Missouri like 58-8. And I called Gene. I said, Gene, you're never gonna beat my record. And he calls me up after his match, and he beat a guy like 70-4, just so he beat me with his score. So it's funny, we used to have competitions like that, which was funny. And even in college, we would I would put a penny on the mat in college and say, okay, I'm gonna pin the guy here, and you pin the guy. It was just kind of a fun thing. But yeah, the mercy rule, when it came into effect, I think after a certain amount of points, they stopped the match, and I think it made wrestling better because the better guys could just really just dominate, and it made the matches too long. So
okay, yeah, no, it's I was wondering why they did that. I guess it was because I know they wanted to. In my experience, I've seen it to where kids are like, cut them, take them down, and people get, other parents, especially at the youth level, get frustrated with it. They think it's embarrassing their kid. Why would you do that? We're trying to just teach them to shoot. So, but now, and so I could see how that could really slow the sport down a lot. So, but
yeah, and like you can actually it prevents injury. If you're that much better than the guy, you can actually hurt him. I mean, one year I was in the finals of the Sheridan Invitational, and I think I won 29-7 against a really quality kid. And after the match, I felt bad because the kid was heartbroken. And I said, man, you're going to do great. Don't worry about it. And the next year, the guy was in the NCAA finals. I thought the guy was terrible. And next year, it's just that my style was so conflicting to his, so. But there's so many great coaches out there. I love the quality of the coaches at the colleges, because I've got to talk to a lot of them recently, and it's and guys I've known, and a lot of the guys I wrestle with became coaches, athletic directors, and then their wrestlers are now becoming coaches as we get older. But wrestling's just a beautiful sport. It's coming. I think it's going to grow. The fact that did you see all the guys that are signing from our amateur wrestling world and freestyle wrestling world for pro wrestling? Pro wrestling is going to have just an amazing amount of just tremendous athletes incorporating their freestyle and scholastic style into the pro style for the entertainment world. It's going to be fun to see. But you were part of that, and so was Kurt Angle, and we were talking. I'm going to do a podcast. Shelton, Shelton, right?
Shelton, Kurt, Brock, and I. Like the ones that really, I guess we'll go back to the Briscoe brothers. Jack and Jack. Jack was the first time. I mean, he was going for his third national title, and right in the middle of the season, he quit to go pro wrestling. It was a real big. I mean, it was not a good thing back then, and that really irked a lot of people. I know that because Jerry said for a while, him and his brother were not welcomed in Stillwater. So,
well, you know what it is, and it's interesting about amateur wrestling. Not only are the amateur wrestlers getting snapped up for freestyle, I mean for pro wrestling, the WWE kind of wrestling, and all the others, a bunch of other leagues out there now, but they're also getting snapped up for the fighting. We had a window where we were not doing as well internationally because our guys were leaving the sport before they reached their pinnacle, and we were losing them to UFC fighting. And if you look at the UFC fighters, you might have 9 titles, and 8 of them are former wrestlers. So there was
Cormier, Johnny Hendricks, Dan.
Oh yeah, I mean, it goes on.
Yeah.
Well, what happened? Yeah, we opened a lot of RTCs, Charlie.
Yeah,
and we have coaches and our wrestlers, and we kept a lot of them. We still lose them, but we kept. I think Bo Nichols is fighting. He's a Texas boy. He's a champ.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the RTCs, the regional training centers. For people that are out there, they're the regional training centers that they place throughout the United States, where they feel it would be the best for them to bring it, to keep those wrestlers from leaving to go to UFC. But how is that an advantage now to recruiting for college coaches? I mean, isn't it almost like against NCAA rules? I mean, because I know it's beneficial to some, and then some it's not. I mean, let's take some history out.
I mean, I'm going to try to consolidate.
All right.
When Gable was at his best, they had the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, and they had like 5 or 6 guys training for the Olympics out of his room.
Dan Gable.
So yes. So Dan's guys were training, and those Olympic wrestlers training with the college guys raised their level of competition. So now it's much more even. It's more parity because, Penn State's got an RTC, Lehigh's got an RTC, Rutgers has an RTC, Princeton has an RTC, UPenn has an RTC, all great programs.
Iowa State, yeah.
West Point has an RTC. So now they get these Olympic wrestlers who are training for Olympics. They're in the room, and they have clubs. So when they're not training for their college and they're not violating NCAA rules, these wrestlers go train with the Olympians or Olympic contenders, and it raises our level. Listen, we have one of the best freestyle teams in the world. We have Joe Russell's coaching, I think Kevin Jackson. He just he left to go to Michigan. You have Billy Zadok, just tremendous people and coaches. And what was interesting is now there's such parity. You have Cornell has an RTC. I don't want to leave anybody out. There's a lot of them.
I mean,
Oklahoma State, Oklahoma.
So what is the NCAA rules with that and the RTC that they can't be, or anyone in the RTC cannot be in their room during the season? Or they have a room, correct?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the rules, but what I can tell you is I think that they can't train together. But I think a lot of them can train at the RTCs in their, on their own time and all that. I mean, whatever the rules are, every coach follows them, but it's improved our wrestling immensely.
Yeah, I
think in off season you can train with the RTC guys. I don't know the rules, and I don't, claim to know them because it changes every year.
I was just wondering because with Michael being a top recruit, I was just wondering if like Penn State would come to him and say, well, we got Bo Nickel, we got David Taylor, we got well, now look at Snyder's over there, and you have Varner. I mean, you got guys like gold medal winners right there, 4 of them right there. Bam.
Well, with my son Michael being recruited so heavily, and so is Jimmy Mullen on his team. Our high school team, I think, out of St. Joe's, I think 3 years ago
Jimmy Mullen, #1 recruit. I know Gable Stevenson's trying to get him to go to Minnesota. So Jimmy Mullen's the #1 recruit for heavyweights for everybody out there.
So I've been talking to a lot of coaches. Mike, I say talk to Mike if he wants to go whatever school he picks. I'll support, but they always call to introduce themselves to the parents and the opportunity academically first, and then their athletic opportunities, and with the NIL and all the changes, it's a lot of benefits. I spoke to Mark Cody down in Presbyterian. He has a boys and girls program. It's Division I, but they're growing. That guy's just a class act. I spoke to Lou Roselli. Oklahoma's coming. He's very strict, but he's a tremendous coach. And, those guys live clean. I was actually, we actually went to Princeton, and we was with Coach Ayers and Nate Jackson, and they just got a great group of guys there. We went up to Lehigh and was with Coach Santoro and Zach Ray, and Brad Dillon. They got great coaching staff. You love the coaches, and Rutgers. You've got Goodell. You've got Donnie Pritzloff, Anthony Ashnall, Joe Pollard. Army has Kevin Ward. They brought in Coach Green from Wyoming Seminary. But there's so many great programs and coaches, and such opportunity for kids to compete at a high level, and just talking to all these coaches and looking at the values and what they're looking for, just amazing. And it's such an opportunity for a real serious kid that wants to put the time in, and I think with recruiting for college is great. Just like I'm sure if you're going to get recruited to fight at a fight club or even a pro wrestling recruit, I'm sure they have to have a certain attitude. They probably do the due diligence on them. I mean,
so let's talk about that. What do you, so when you transition from, college, you dominated in college, then you went on internationally. You're known for pinning Belaglass off the first American to pin him, correct?
I beat Sergey twice.
Sergey Dellagatta, yeah, twice, yes.
We were 2-2 and beat a lot
Tell
of
us about that real quick. I want to hear that story because that is something that's everyone must hear. Talk about that.
So I get a call. I'm in Kentucky. I have to go, and I'm young too. I'm still young. I'm like 20 years old, and I was a U.S. Open champion. But they have this Road to the Gold series where the Soviet Union's coming to Atlantic City. I get a date, hop on a plane, get off the plane. I get into the limo, and people in the limo are like, oh my gosh, you got to wrestle this Bella Glazov. Oh, you got to watch. She's the best in the world. So then my brother Joey, I see my brother Joey. He's like, Rick, just don't get pinned. Lay on your belly. Then my girlfriend, oh, poor Ricky, don't get pinned. And Joey Gonzalez.
Why was he so dominating?
Yeah, don't get pinned. Yeah, he was good.
Why? What made him so dominant? What was he?
Well, I guess he was like he hadn't lost in like 300 matches or something. Him and his brother were just dominant. So then I'm getting ready to go wrestle, and I'm training with the cars. So listen, I've been wrestling, Randy Miller, and I got Joe Carr beating me up, not too bad, but Joe was just a monster. So I'm walking on the mat, and Coach Wick's over there, and actually I was on the team with Bruce Baumgartner, and down in Atlantic City, we were wrestling at resorts. We sold out, families there. I go out there against Bella Glazov, and I'm so mad because I had 5 people tell me, just don't get pinned. I said, okay, I'm going to throw this guy a beating now. I'm going to give it to him. So we went out there, and South Jersey came out of me. That's where I'm from. I'm wrestling in my hometown. And I think it was a close match, and then I threw him. I think I hit him with a Metzger. And I got Bella Glazov on his back, and he's hollering, yeah. And then I stuck him, like I planted him on the mat, and they called the pin, and everybody went crazy. And it was a special one of my highlights in wrestling. I can say that.
It was. I mean, like you said, he was undefeated. I mean, everyone knows who Sergey Bella Glazov is. I mean, but you penning him coming out of college. I mean, that put you on the map. All of a sudden, now everyone knew who Rick Dellagatta was. So
yeah, that was a big moment. Yeah. I mean, the press, Atlantic City press, the amateur wrestling news, and then I actually wrestled him and lost to him twice, but then I hit him in the finals, all close matches, and then I hit him in the finals of the Canadian Cup in I think we're in Quebec, and I think the Canadian Cup was almost like a Olympics and off year because they had boycotted 1980, and I whipped up on him again. He had just won the World Championships too, and I whipped up on him. So that was another feather in my hat. But you have to give Bella Glazov all the respect in the world. It was just a master technician, just a master technician. So, when you're competing against guys at that level, it motivates you to get up in the morning and do everything extra to be a champion, So
now, is it true that you're out running, you're out training? I guess it was getting ready for the U.S. trials, and you're out there going, man, no one works harder than me. No one works harder than me. And you look over, and there's your nemesis running down the street.
Yeah. I was running. No, that was the UK was wrestling Oklahoma State, and I'm running New Circle Road to make weight at night, and I'm like running down there, and I'm talking to myself, doing the mental psych. You get 10,000 thoughts a day in your head, and you brainwash yourself. I'm a bad man. I'm gonna crush my guy. Ain't nobody working harder than me. Now, New Circle Road is like 6 miles around Lexington. And I'm running. And I look across the road, and there's Leroy Smith. He's running, talking to himself. We wrestled Oklahoma State, and he wasn't in my weight that time, but they ended up beating us by 2 points. I think they were ranked 2nd or 3rd. But the Smiths are legendary.
Oh yeah, Johnny Leroy.
So there's Leroy across the road. I'm like, I can't say that. So Leroy went on to suck down to my weight at 36 and a half, and we had a lot of good competitions together.
Yeah. You end up beating him and Randy Lewis. Yeah, those matches are on YouTube. If anyone wants to check them out, Rick Dellagatta versus Randy Lewis for the Olympic trials. And Rick, it was a crazy point. That was a hell of a match. It was like going back and forth. I mean, between both of you, then all of a sudden you just pulled ahead. Man. Yeah,
Randy and I had a bunch of matches. A tremendous competitor, but we had more of a wide open style. Today everybody's using a lot of down blocks and positional wrestling. I think wrestling's exciting now because the scoring is is better. In the days that we wrestled, there was a lot of spread between the better guys and some of the guys that weren't as good. There's just a lot of solid technical kids wrestling. Like Rutgers program, I think they'll probably end up hitting top 10 this year. I think Oklahoma State, Iowa, Cornell, Penn State, they're all going to be battling for a title. Listen, I'm going to make a pick for you.
Yeah, you didn't hear that. Yeah, I was going to ask you. They always ask you.
I honestly think it's going to be Iowa again.
See the match the other day, Iowa and Iowa State. I mean, they've got I don't know what was said, but what Brands went up. I mean, that one Brands coach, it was Tom or Terry, took off, man. I didn't know what was said, but there was a fight between Iowa and Iowa State. It was like right after the heavyweight match.
That's the rivalry there, man. But I really feel Iowa will win it this year. I think Penn State will be right in the mix for second, but they have so many great freshmen. It's a great place to train.
Let's talk about that. Penn State had 4 national champs last year.
Yeah,
they didn't even win it. And I mean, Iowa, I think they had 2 or they had 3, I think. And they and the bull Marinelli, he's back, man. So it was good to see him wrestling.
So I think it goes in cycles. I remember when John Smith was coming off of his Olympic years of dominant. I think one year Oklahoma State had 5 NCAA champions. I think there was a time when Iowa had 5 NCAA champions.
Yeah.
Now Penn State. So I think it's cyclical. Although I love the Penn State program. I love their technique. I love their attitude about clean living. They're a really tremendous program. And that's what every parent wants for their child to get a great education and to be able to compete. So I mean, I'm a fan of Oklahoma State because they take their wrestlers and they go to the hospital and they do they teach them to help.
A lot of charity work, to give back to the community. Yeah, no, John's always been really good with that.
Yeah. What a great program too, and they got the Ferrari boys.
I know, man.
WWE.
He is, you guys, and he actually. I talked to his dad, and they're going to be on our next podcast. So AJ's going to be on there. AJ just signed with WWE, but he's also won his first national title as a freshman. He could be, because last year they got an extra year with COVID. If he decides to do this, he could be a 5-time national champion. That's never been done. But he's getting 4 years ahead of him, though. But anyone can do it. It's Mr. Fast Twitch, I'll tell you that.
I won a lot of personal bets on that boy. I was telling him when he was in high school, I was like, this kid's going to he has such great work ethic and the commitment, and you're in the room and he's just absorbing the technique. And they were in our room for a good while. Just great kids, and Anthony still keeps in touch with me.
I have a picture of them and my kids and all that at my dad's wedding, my dad's funeral, and all them. So they're all little, man. AJ, Anthony, it's
I got the picture, right? Oh,
you said it to me. I was like, man,
it's little Russ and Chucky, yeah.
Michael Rocco, it's great, man. So now you've come full circle. Like you branched out. Your system hit Jersey. You came to Texas. You introduced it to North Texas, which everyone's thriving off of up here. And then you're back at the NYC. So I mean, how is it different now than it was then? Because I know, you have Titan Mercury, you have Still Sunkiss, you got Cowboy. I mean, for a while, like you guys dominated, but then NYC was down when Foxcatcher was around. But now that they're gone, how is it building it back up?
Well, COVID, I think, adversely affected our club because of the shutdowns, and the NYC is, if they were a small country, they'd be like the 3rd winningest medal country in the world for Olympic sports. I just was at an Olympic dinner, but they've always been a great organization for supporting athletes. We're building back up, and we're a small club. We don't have the numbers like Titan Mercury. I think their budget's a lot bigger than ours. So we're trying to build our budget up. Dave Foxon is our chairman, and he's battling. He does a good job. But we have premier women's team, premier Greco, and we it's always fun to have that competition. So today, a lot of the wrestlers are getting compensated much better financially. So they'll leave a club and go to another club. It's what's best for wrestling. Wrestling's in a good place right now. I think we're going to be adding a lot more programs with the women's sport. And listen, the women's wrestling, whether it's pro wrestling or fighting with
It's
UFC,
dominating in pro wrestling. I mean,
Yeah.
it's helped out a lot, and the girls are getting paid, man. They can get
Yeah.
paid in pro wrestling now.
yeah,
Great
it's big. It's big in Jersey now, big in Texas, and you know, you don't realize how great some of these women athletes are, and they've never been showcased. But it's just really, it's heartfelt to see them have the same opportunities in our sport that that the other women do, and not only that, even if you win the Living the Dream fund, you know, we're paying the ladies the same thing that we're paying the men. They're getting equal pay. They don't get it in soccer. They don't get it in basketball, but they're tremendous athletes, and it's fun to watch. Like, I was so happy that the NYAC, we had a world champion this year with Adeline Gray, and Hilda Brandt was a medalist.
And she's a gold medal winner too. You know, that she was a gold medalist. I mean, to win the gold medal.
Yeah, she's a class act. We had dinner with her probably 3 weeks ago. You know, it's fun to be around people that are driven, that have talent. My wife Kara and I had a tremendous dinner with them at the New York Athletic Club. This was, oh man, 3 weeks ago. Who knows? It was close.
You know, I'm so happy because I know Iowa announced that they're starting a women's program. You know, and I did the research. There's over 1,300 scholarships for women's wrestling, and we only have 1,100 women wrestling right now. You know, that in college. But I mean, you know, and that's at smaller schools, of course, but schools that people, you know, because talk about that real quick. They don't have D1, D2, or D3 for women's wrestling. It's a NWCA, correct? National Women's College Association, or something like that.
It's women's wrestling, but they don't wrestle classic. They wrestle freestyle, which is going to make a big impact for us on the Olympic level. You know, because Japan's dominant.
But now, okay, are they gonna keep? Let's talk about that. Are they going to keep it like that? Or are they going to go back to the folk style?
I think it's going to stay freestyle. Listen, like I'm involved in,
because there are rumors that people want to see freestyle take the place of folk style, like for college.
Yeah, it would be better for us on an Olympic level, but it's so ingrained into the grassroots of wrestling that it would be hard to see it change. Because listen, we're best in the world now. We're one of the best in the world, and we have two styles. So, you know, I don't see a reason to change it. Maybe parallel some of the rules that parallel freestyle would be good. But, you know, listen, wrestling's just an amazing sport. You know, everybody wants to either hire you. If you're a wrestler, they want to hire you. If you're West Point, they want to hire you, or Naval Academy, and you know, they got great programs too. So, you know, good opportunity for the young wrestlers today. It's really good, the exposure we're getting.
I saw the press interview with Tom Brands, and he was like they announced they're starting a women's program. I mean, it was big. It was, you know, hit, you know, nationwide. And then he goes, you know, it's a darn shame that the state of Iowa won't even recognize women's wrestling, and he wants to see it as a, you know, for the women to have a state title, to have a state competition, and they don't do it, you know, and he's fighting for that, so he's a big advocate as well. You know?
Yeah, he'll do it. He puts his mind to something. He's making it happen. I love to watch the competitions between the coaches. Are fun to watch. They're
great. They're great. Speaking of which, I don't know, you know, I'm sure you know Dallas, Texas, in February 12th, Oklahoma State versus Iowa. And right next to them, on the same next mat over, will be a USA versus Iran, and it's at the new ballpark where the Rangers play now. So it's a retractable roof, but I'm sure it'll be closed. So I mean, they're pumping it down here. They're going to have it. They're going to have two matches going at the same time. One, Oklahoma State will wrestle a match, and then it'll go USA versus Iran. But I mean, it's going to be good, really.
It would even be better if they would have a pro competition the night before.
Oh. That'd be great. It's too bad it's not around the same week as WrestleMania, because WrestleMania is about, you know, is about a month after that. But yeah, so Dallas is gonna be busy with wrestling. We got USA, Iran, Oklahoma State, Iowa, and then WrestleMania week. You know, so we're excited for that.
I've been there. I've been to WrestleMania.
I know. We had a lot of fun. Yeah. 90,000 people walking down there to Safeco Field. Like, me and Sean walk out there, and they're like, "You suck." I mean, 90,000 people telling us we suck. That was pretty good, man. I loved it.
Rick,
how is Shelton? He's good. I'm sorry.
What what records do you hold in amateur wrestling? I know we got a bunch of listeners that are curious to that.
Well, I think Randy had called me and said, hey, Rick, how many NCAA champions have you been in freestyle and wrestling? And I said, well, I went through the list and I pinned 11. So I don't know if that's a record, but it's a lot of guys to pin. At the University of Kentucky, I had a lot of the records, even though we had some great wrestlers there, but I think a lot of, most wins. I had 124 wins in college and the fastest pin and, most points and yada, yada, yada. So amateur wrestling, each university has their, their team and their records. Like Brian Smith, actually, I spoke to Brian for Missouri. He's done amazing program over there. So when you talk about every school has their record, like how many people know this? I was athlete of the year for the University of Kentucky, and I beat out Sam Bowie, who was back then he was a basketball star who played.
He was the number one pick for the NBA, and he was picked ahead Olajuwon and Jordan. Yeah.
So we are trailblazers. The fact that and then it was a shame the SEC dropped wrestling. I kind of feel like it's going to come back. So we had such a good with the Milkovich and Auburn and Alabama.
Clemson started a women's program. They just started a women's program. So that's the spark we need is to get that fire going. Man, yeah, that's great, man. But Rick, so what do you now that you're director of operations? What do you look at though? Like, what's your due diligence for your recruits when you bring them on to NYC? I mean, what is it that because they're representing, like you said, tradition, and plus, no one knows about the NYC when you go there. It's suit and tie. I mean, it's first class. It's no BS, that's for sure.
It's a 24-story building. It has other facilities located at Central Park South, overlooking the Central Park. It's right next to the Jeremiah Essex House, and it is a 5-star facility.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but they have policies there for supporting sports. Like Dave, our chairman, he wants you to finish top 3 at the nationals, and then we pick you up. That's the way they're working on it. We do work and help lower level guys that are coming up and develop them. You can't sponsor everybody, but we pick up some really tremendous athletes. But that's a criteria that they set. Like we had Anthony Ashnall, who got hurt last year, wrestles for Rutgers, tremendous wrestler.
The national title, yeah, for Rutgers. Him and Soriano, yeah.
Yeah, and even Soriano, I was wanting Soriano to wrestle for us, but there's a lot of people knocking on their door. Anthony's a very loyal NYAC guy. Donnie Pritzloff, a coach at Rutgers, great guy. He was an NYAC guy. So we have so many, but Dave does a good job with that. It's tough. So there's a lot of competition now, and it's going to get more because now people can go WWE, they could go UFC, they can do amateur wrestling, freestyle, Greco. So there's places for them to go after the sport. I'm just excited that it's catching on so much. I think the Olympic performance by Gable Stevenson really
ignited.
And
what's different for pro wrestling than compared to like Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, is that we're considered sports entertainment.
Yeah.
So we are, and everyone knows this year that this is the first year that NCAA is allowing student athletes, to make money off their name and their likeness. So, Vince is brilliant. He can go in, sign these kids young, say, hey, you're going to finish school. You're going to get that degree because that's what we want. And it's better for everybody. Your family wants that. But at the same time, he can put the bill on all their merchandise. And while they're, getting their All-American honors, he can, they can flood the market with their, with all the memorabilia that's going to have their name and likeness on it. And then they make money off of it. It'll be a split, of course, but it's brilliant. Where Major League Baseball and NFL, they can't do that because you're not allowed to be picked up until after college. So, like we said, we're sports entertainment, so it's supposedly we're fake. So
it's a great sport entertainment. I've followed it for years. I've followed you and Shelton and Kurt
and Rock and Steiner Brothers. Yeah.
Steiner Brothers. Yeah. So I'm excited in the direction of our sport. People like Shelton,
Did
These
you know Mike
podcasts
Rotundo?
are great stuff, man.
Did you know Mike Rotundo? Mike
Yeah.
Rotundo?
Yeah,
His son's Bray Wyatt. Yeah, was one of the biggest stars in WWE, and now he's a free agent. So yeah, Mike Rotundo. That's right. He was Gene Mills.
he wrestled with Gino. Yeah,
Yeah.
The Mills Monster, man.
Yeah,
Gene the Pinning Machine. He was fun to watch wrestle too.
that's great. I'd like to have you come back and do a podcast with both you and Gene, so we can hear your stories. Like what you guys, your stories when you're traveling down the road together. So because I know they're pretty funny.
Yeah, anytime. The U.S. team just has to counter that Iranian underhook when they wrestle because they use it well. So I'm sure Coach Zadig will have them ready for that. I might even come in for that competition in Dallas. That'll be fun.
No, please do, man. We'd love to have you out here, and it's gonna be a really, really good competition, and it's gonna be great to promote, amateur wrestling for the U.S. Just see us dominate, and then plus just North Texas, because maybe we can get somebody to finally say, what, let's get Texas we got to get a Division I program in there because it's a shame we don't have it.
Well, Andre Metzger was over at UNT, and I think we were under the impression that if they won a couple conference titles, they would go to Division II and then Division I. And for some reason, it never manifested. They did the same thing in Florida with one of the programs there with Milkovich, developed it. And we thought they were going to go Division II and then Division I. And it didn't happen. Now with the women's wrestling, I think we're going to see a big change. And I'm just happy that registration's up. The women are wrestling, the ladies wrestling. It's just great. And the fact that Vince and the WWE is so supportive of our sport, it's
Tony
great.
Khan, AEW,
Yeah. And there's just a lot of organizations coming up. So, guys like you and Brett are doing your podcasts and promoting amateur wrestling and interviewing with the guys. I mean, you should nail a couple of the college coaches. Some of them are characters.
Hey, no, if you could, make the introduction, we'd love to do that. I would definitely love to do that, man. Definitely.
Yeah, and then, they got a tough season coming up. I'm so excited. I'm getting my tickets out to Detroit, and the NCAAs this year are in Detroit. So, I'm hoping we can pack the house after last year with the COVID restrictions. So, God willing, we'll keep it going in the right direction. So it's fun. I love wrestling. I almost think how Dick Vitale has that passion for basketball. There's a lot of us wrestling fans out there that just love the sport, and it's going to be fun to watch the NCAAs this year. It really will be.
Well, Rick, man, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and, man, just bringing more attention to amateur wrestling because this will go out to the pro wrestling fans as well. And like I said, our goal is to unite both worlds and just have a united front for wrestling because after all, like I always say, no matter what, you don't start wrestling till you're backed up into an uncomfortable position, and that can be for both sports. So it's a great sport for both, and man, I'm excited. So
Charlie, you were a amazing pro wrestler with all the titles that you had and all the traveled the world. I mean, I can't think of a guy I know. Maybe the only guy would be James Johnson that was in more countries than you. And that might even be a coin flip, man. You traveled the world, boy, in the palaces. I followed your career. It was great. It's amazing that people don't even realize the exposure a guy like you had with how many titles did you win? I mean, you were like the world tag team
30 world titles. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So
I didn't even know that until I did an interview, and someone's like, they were bringing me on. They're like, the man has held over 30 world titles, and I'm like, I look around, I'm like, I didn't lost count. I didn't even know. I mean, he's like, yeah, it's on Wikipedia. You have over 30 world titles. I'm like, okay.
You're amazing. An amazing spokesperson for both sports, and we all adore you, and we thank you for all you guys do. Really is great. Thank you, Charlie.
Hey, Rick, is there anything before you end? Is there anywhere we can find any of your social media that we can follow? Or you got St. Joe's Regional High School, you got NYC. Anything else?
Yes, my boys are at St. Joe's Regional. We're probably a top 10 team in the country for high school right now.
Right.
I'll send you some information on
that. And then what you do is people, you can watch Flow Wrestling or Track Wrestling. They bought Flow. You can watch you'll go on Flow, and you can get that on the Roku or any app, and it'll tell you exactly where to go. But St. Joe's, be on the lookout. Michael Dellagatta, Jimmy Mullins. You got the 2 top recruits in the country at different weights, and Rocco Delgado.
Alex Almeida. Yeah,
Alex Almeida. Yeah,
we're tough.
Really good job, man. So, well, guys, everyone, I'm Charlie Haas, and you can find us at the Haas Pod, Wrestling's Greatest Podcast, or at Charlie Haas or Real Charlie Haas, and that's on Instagram, and our YouTube TV. What is that again?
So Wrestling's Greatest Podcast. Just search for Wrestling Greatest Podcast on YouTube. You'll see all the episodes of our podcast there. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at TheSuperTex, on Instagram as Brent McKenzie. Be sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube.
Like and subscribe. And we're gonna have Rick send us the Duck Under series, and that's something that I'm thinking we're gonna do, Brent. I'm gonna put a section in that YouTube TV where we're showing different amateur, have the greats put their moves on there, and we'll break it down step by step. It'll be play by play. Cool. All right, everybody. Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you on, Rick. I really appreciate you joining us tonight, man. It's an honor to be sitting here with you and listening to your stories. Charlie, thank you for having Rick come on with us. So hopefully we'll get to do this next time, like Charlie said, and hopefully we'll see you in February at the big meet there in Arlington. So I'm looking forward to that. And guys, just be sure to follow our social media. It's at the Hotspot on all platforms. And Rick, do you have anything else before we take off?
Well, what I was going to say is the NCAAs are this year in March. You guys should come out and do a traveling podcast from the NCAAs, and we'll talk about that. That would be fun. Where you
that'd be great, man. Oh, yeah.
They're in Detroit this year, and you got a bunch of the college guys now signing pro wrestling contracts, and we got a lot of great things happening, and that would be fun. And I want to thank you, Brett and Charlie, and excited about wrestling. College season's back. Last year we all missed it, and it's back. So I think we're gonna have a great year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well,
thank you, everybody. It's the world's greatest podcast. Signing off.
For Charlie Haas, I'm Super Tex Brent McKenzie. Thanks again to Rick Dellagatta. This is Wrestling's Greatest Podcast.